Hello and welcome to Mastercam. So this is our first jump into Mastercam. We're going to be making a cutting board out of HDPE plastic. I'm excited about this. This is our first chance to use our CNC router, and this is a really neat introduction project. As you can see, our cutting board's on our screen, and as you can see, as my mouse moves over it, it highlights. If I click on it, it'll stay highlight and it'll stay yellow. I'm going to escape, which will unselect. I can also use my middle mouse button and hold that down, and I can pull this around with my middle mouse button held down. I can rotate that freely. I can, anywhere in this graphic screen here, I can right click and I can select the primary views that we look at: front, top, and right side. So there's the top. When it first opened up, it was an isometric view. I'm going to stick with the top view because that's what we're going to primarily work in. And I can also zoom in and out using the scroll button. So there's a lot of freedom of motion here. I do want to draw your attention to the operations manager. This should automatically be populated for you as the Mach 3 3-axis mill. If it's not, let me know, and we will jump into these little menus here to work out how to get that set correctly. Our tool settings have already been set. You can see our default program number is 1. You can see that I've as this is polycarbonate. It's not really, it's HDPE plastic, but I'm going to leave it as polycarbonate. Our start increment for our block numbers are 1, and we're going to count by 1, which we'll get to much later. And the last two things I want to point out are we're going to assign tool numbers sequentially and warn of duplicates, and we're going to turn all our advanced options on, which are going to have an impact on us later. So we want those selected. I'll go to my stock setup. You'll notice my board is 7 1/4 by 12 and about 5/16 and about 3/4 of an inch thick. And my origin is set at XYZ at 0, 0, 0. So this works just like math. We have an X-axis, a Y-axis, and we also have an up and down axis as Z. So we're just going to accept all that stuff by clicking the green check, which is just like selecting OK. Down here in this, our tool path group, I'm going to worry about that stuff later because we have nothing to select, but I've already populated all this for us so that we can quickly get our text and image on here, or image on here, so that we can machine our part. So let's get started with that. The next thing I want to select is a level. And I'm going to type in a new level number. I'm going to type in level 4. And I'm going to just tab down. And I'm going to call this text. So once my text is typed in there, I just hit enter, and that's automatically going to populate here correctly for me. Once that's populated, I'm now going to go to wireframe, and I'm going to select over here, create letters. So when I create letters, notice that my name is already here. Your name won't pop up automatically. I've already played with this a little bit, so you'll notice I've typed my name in here. I've kept the style of text exactly the way it was, and I'm just going to type my name in. The next thing I want to point out is down here for my spacing. I want my spacing to be .3, not .2 as it defaults to, because our spacing ends up a little better. So now that I've got this in here, if I click anywhere on my screen, it'll start placing my text. So I've clicked here, and there's my name. It's not centered correctly. I'm going to show you how to center that correctly here in a second. So let's get started on that. So now that I've got my text in, you notice I have 33 entities here. I want to do another layer. I'm going to call this layer 5, and I'm going to type in dimension. The reason I want to do that is it's easier to manipulate things when we do this. So I'm going to type in dimension there. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to one of our layers up here called drafting, and I'm going to click on this horizontal dimension tool. And my horizontal dimension, I want to get a dimension from the end of the L to the corner of the block and the end of the E to the corner of the block. You do this with your name as well. I want to go from the end to the end. And all I have to do is get close there. And I'm just going to put it right here on the screen so we can see it. I'm going to repeat that process over here from the end of my E to the corner here. I'm just going to place that as well. So I'm going to click the green check. And notice they're on the screen. I can see them. I can manipulate them. And you'll notice they're not equal. So we're going to make them equal now. So to do that, I'm going to select all of my name. And once I've selected all of my name, I'm going to go up here to transform, and we're going to translate my name to the left because I know I've got this number bigger than this number, and those two numbers should match. So the program will default to copy. We want to make sure we select zoom. And I'm going to type in those two numbers. So I'm going to type in the big number first, 3.223 minus 1.652, and hit enter once. You're going to see my name jump to the right. It's not really what we want, but we're letting the computer do the math for us. I know that if I take those two numbers and subtract them, if I come back half of this distance, it's going to make this number and this number equal. So what I'm going to do is type in divide by 2, enter. And again, it moved my name a little bit back to the right. But I noticed this number is bigger than this number, and I need to go in a negative direction. So over here, I'm going to click just to the left of my 0. I'm going to hit the minus sign, hit enter again. You're going to see, whoa, that looks pretty good. It's centered. Let's see if that works. So if I click OK, you're going to notice now that my dimensions are within 1,000th of each other. That's outstanding. We can't get much closer because it's a rounding issue. If we kept working on this to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, we would get it. But if we're off by 1,000th, that's nothing to worry about. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and make my active layer, so that's what the little check mark is, to 4. And I'm going to turn off my dimension layer, so I don't need to see that. So now I see my name on the board, and it's ready to go. So that's centered. I would repeat that process going vertically using the y-axis, again using translate. But I did want to show you one more thing. So I'm going to highlight this and delete that. And it's going to come up with some errors because I have some dimensions that are associated with some text. So I'm going to get rid of all that. Once I've deleted all my entities, you'll notice my layer for dimensions disappeared because those associate entities need to have something to associate to, and they just disappear, which isn't a big deal. So I'm going to change the name of this. Instead of text, I'm going to change this to image. Once I've typed image in, I'm going to put an image in here. So I'm going to go up here again to my wireframe menu, and this is where we grabbed our letters before. But we're going to go over two more columns and grab raster to vector. It's going to come up with a message, do we want to merge? Yes, we do. And I've already selected the Candor C off the interweb. And once I've selected it, I've saved it, the image as, and this happens to be a PNG image. So I'm going to stay with my default here because it's basically going to copy this C for us. The next thing I want to select is make sure I create outlines here. So I made sure that's turned on. I'm going to leave everything else as a default as I go through this the first time to make sure it works. And again, I'm staying with all defaults. So I click OK. And that image looks pretty good. That C looks really decent. So I'm just scrolling in to look at that. I'm going to right click and fit. So now that image is way too small. So let's get it blown up a little bit. So I'm going to put a window around it. And I'm going to go up here to my transform menu, and I'm going to use scale. And I'm going to guess to see what this looks like. I want to see if I get it on this screen. And again, it's going to default to copy. We want to go to move because we want to move that, not copy it. And let's see what 4 times bigger looks like. So I click 4, and I just click in another white box up here to see what it does. I think we can go bigger. I'm going to go 6. Click in a white box. Hey, that looks pretty good. And I can zoom out and see that looks like that's going to fit on there very nicely. So I'm going to click OK. Next, I'm going to move that onto our screen, or I move it onto the board. So again, I grab it, and I'm going to use transform so that it looks decent. I'm going to use translate, and we're going to move it around so it looks decent. So instead of using these this time, we're just going to get it close. So I'm going to drag it over here, place it there. I'm going to drag this down and get it centered so it looks decent. Again, once I've got it decent, so it looks decent, I would go through and I would redimension and get it centered because it's going to look really screwy if we don't do that. And we do not want our objects to look like clowns, which means they look funny. So once that image is there, I now, if it were centered, I could play with this a little bit, and you're going to see that there's going to be an issue with this. And I want to show you what that issue is. I'm going to go to Toolpaths. I'm going to come up here to Parameters, and I'm going to go right to the toolpath type, the very top selection. And I'm going to pick chain geometry because we don't have any geometry selected yet. And I'm going to go over here to this wireframe button, and I'm going to use the little window icon here. And I'm going to put a window around my C. And it's going to ask me for an approximate start point, so I'm going to click there. And notice it kind of turns Christmas colors, which is fine. I'm going to click the green check, and I'm going to click the green check again after I click Regenerate Toolpath. So once that's done, I now have a toolpath, and it doesn't look like much, but I can go through and verify this. And I hope this comes out on the video, but I'm going to go ahead and click verify here, and a new screen should pop up for us. And when that screen pops up, we should see how this machines. So if this is not on the video, I apologize. I'm just verifying that this works right, so I'm just going to turbo through this. And if you're looking at this, you'll see that there's way too many things machined there. So we want just a single outline. So to fix that, I'm going to go back to top, And I can go through and I can delete these things one at a time. So I just click delete and enter and so forth and keep working my way around. It's going to come up with this error every time. So I can click a whole bunch of things so I don't have to reselect that error every time I click delete. So I'm just going around and click, 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 and hit delete. And I'm going to hit delete all selected entities. And as you can see, I'm getting this down to an image that we like. So that's a real rough video of what we're going to try to tackle in class. That's the first of several that we need to use to get through this process of getting an image or our name or a message that we want on our cutting board I hope you enjoy this, and please stay tuned for more.